Ladies and gentlemen, in life, kindness is a gift. But when kindness becomes unlimited, it turns into self-destruction. Many of us confuse love with availability, loyalty with sacrifice, and support with slavery. We answer calls at midnight, we fix problems we didn't create, we show up for people who would never show up for us. And slowly, silently, painfully, we become exhausted givers in a world full of strategic takers. Today, I want to share something that may hurt, but will free you. You don't need to stop being kind. You don't need to stop helping, but you must stop giving people unlimited access to your time, your mind, your emotions, and your energy. Because when you are too available, people stop seeing your value. When you stop respecting your boundaries, people stop respecting you. So let's explore together how to stay kind without becoming used, how to stay generous without losing yourself, and how to reclaim your worth before it slips away. When you make yourself constantly available, you unknowingly lower the very value you carry within you. Human nature is simple. People don't appreciate what they can access anytime, any day without effort. Think about it, the sun rises every morning and yet most people don't pause to admire it. But a rainbow appears rarely and suddenly everyone pulls out their phones to capture it. Scarcity creates appreciation, rarity creates respect. When you allow everyone to reach you instantly, freely, and repeatedly, without any boundaries, you slowly shift from being a blessing to becoming background noise. Many times you're not being ignored because you're unimportant. You're being ignored because you become predictable. You become an emotional vending machine. Press the button and you'll respond. People stop valuing the things they assume they will never lose. Your time becomes their convenience. Your attention becomes their entitlement. Your presence becomes their habit. They don't see your kindness, they see your availability. They don't see your sacrifice, they see your accessibility. And very quietly, the respect they once had for you begins to fade. When you are always available, people don't see your effort. They see your presence as normal, not special. They don't feel gratitude, they feel expectation. Every time you say yes, even when your mind is tired and your heart is heavy, they take it as your default setting. They begin to assume you have no priorities of your own. They believe your life revolves around their needs. And sadly, the more you give, the less they pause to question whether you're okay. They become accustomed to taking from you without even realizing the weight you carry. Your value shines the brightest when you protect your time and energy. When you respond after finishing your own responsibilities. When you create space for your own thoughts, your own growth, your own peace. When you allow people to miss you, to wait for you, to realize that your presence is not automatic. A little distance creates gratitude. A little delay creates respect. A little boundary creates value. Being less available doesn't make you selfish, it makes you wise. Because your life is not meant to be lived on call, for those who only show up when they need something. You deserve relationships where your presence is celebrated, not exploited. You deserve connections that understand your worth, not those that drain it. When you stop being constantly available, you don't lose people. You lose the ones who are using your availability, not appreciating your humanity. And in that loss, you gain something far greater, your dignity, your peace, and your true value. When you keep giving and giving without pause, something deep inside you begins to break down, slowly, silently, and often without you realizing it. Emotional exhaustion doesn't arrive dramatically, it creeps in. It begins with small moments, when you feel drained after a simple conversation, when you sigh before responding to a message, when you help someone but feel strangely empty instead of fulfilled. This emptiness is not because you lack kindness, it's because you've been pouring from a cup that no one is helping you refill. You become the person everyone turns to but no one checks on. You're the one who listens, comforts, fixes, and supports, yet your own emotional needs remain untouched. You tell others, "I'm fine," even when you feel like you're sinking. You keep showing up not because you have endless strength, but because you think that if you stop, someone will be disappointed, upset, or inconvenienced. But your heart is not a machine. It needs rest. It needs moments of stillness. It needs care just as much as anyone else's. The painful truth is that people rarely notice your exhaustion. They're so used to your strength that they forget you're human. They expect your support because you've offered it so consistently. They think you're capable of carrying everyone because you've never complained. And slowly they mistake your silence for infinite energy. But inside, you feel the weight increasing. Your mind becomes foggy, your emotions become heavy, your patience shortens, and your joy begins to fade. Overgiving is dangerous because it convinces you that your worth comes from how much you do for others. You start feeling guilty for resting, guilty for saying no, guilty for choosing yourself. You begin to believe that if you stop giving, you'll lose people. And that fear keeps you trapped in a cycle of emotional burnout. But the truth is, the right people won't leave when you set limits. Only the ones who misuse your kindness will. Emotional exhaustion also clouds your judgment. You start saying yes automatically because you're too tired to explain no. You help with problems that drain you because you feel responsible for others' comfort. You become the emotional sponge for everyone's stress, anger, sadness, and frustration, while no one absorbs even a drop of your own. And this imbalance slowly kills your inner peace. Your emotional health matters, your energy matters, your mental space matters. You deserve time to breathe, to heal, to feel lighter. You deserve relationships where support flows both ways, not where you're the only source. When you overgive, you teach the world that your boundaries don't exist. When you keep burning yourself for others, you eventually run out of flame, and the people you burn for don't even notice the ashes. Protecting your emotional energy is not selfish, it's essential. Because if you collapse, the world won't pause. If you break down, most people won't even understand why. You owe it to yourself to step back, to rest, to say not today, to choose peace over pressure, and to remember that you're allowed to exist for yourself, not just for others. When you stop overgiving, you stop betraying your own heart. You start honoring it instead. People don't just decide how to treat you on their own. You teach them through your actions, your reactions, and your consistency. Every time you answer immediately, even when you're busy. Every time you fix a problem that wasn't yours. Every time you drop everything for someone who wouldn't do the same for you. You quietly send them a message. My time is not as important as yours. My needs can wait. My boundaries don't matter. This teaching doesn't happen in one day. It's subtle, it's gradual. And because it happens slowly, you don't even realize that you've trained someone to see you as the go-to, the always there, the they'll handle it person. Before you know it, your helpfulness becomes your identity in their eyes, not your talents, not your dreams, not your personality, just your availability. Human behavior works on patterns. When people receive something repeatedly without asking twice, they begin to expect it. Expectations quickly turn into entitlement, and entitlement turns into disrespect, not always intentionally, but naturally. For example, if you respond to texts immediately, people start thinking you always will. If you always say yes to favors, they assume you'll never say no. If you fix every crisis, they conclude that you must fix every future crisis. You become their default solution instead of a valued human being with your own life. This is why you might notice that when you need help, the same people who depend on you suddenly become busy, unavailable, or not sure if they can. It's not always malice. Many simply don't see you as someone who needs support. They see you as someone who provides it. Because that's the role you've always played. You unknowingly trained them to believe you're strong enough to handle everything and soft enough to tolerate anything. And as long as you continue rewarding their behavior with unlimited availability, nothing will change. People adjust to what benefits them. If your pattern benefits their comfort, they won't question it. They will continue expecting instant replies, constant help, endless patience, and zero boundaries. Not because they're bad people, but because you've never shown them what your limits look like. Training people happens in the opposite direction too. When you start setting boundaries, delaying responses, saying I can't right now, or prioritizing your own responsibilities, you send a new message. My time is valuable. My energy is limited. I am not on call for everyone. I treat myself with respect, and I expect the same from you. Once people see that you respect your own boundaries, they begin respecting them too. At least the ones who genuinely care. The ones who disappear, complain, or get irritated were never interested in you, only in what you could give them. Notice how people act when you stop being instantly available. Some will adjust and appreciate you more. Others will show their true colors. Either way, you learn something important. Your limits teach people how to love you. Your boundaries teach people how to treat you. Your decisions teach people how important your time is. When you stop training people or take you for granted, you start training them to value you. And that shift, though painful, is the beginning of real respect, mutual connection, and emotional freedom. Saying no is one of the most difficult skills for a kind-hearted person. We grow up believing that refusing someone makes us rude, selfish, or unkind. So we stretch ourselves thin. We say yes when our mind is tired. We agree when our heart is unwilling. We commit when we have no time left to give. And slowly, without noticing, we turn into people pleasers, exhausted, overwhelmed, and silently resentful. But here is the truth most people never say out loud. Boundaries are not cruel. Boundaries are a form of self-respect. A boundary is not a wall that keeps people out. It is a door that decides who gets access, when they get access, and how they get access to your life. Without boundaries, your energy becomes public property. Anyone can walk in, take what they want, and walk out. Boundaries are simply a way of saying, I matter too. My time matters, my feelings matter, my priorities matter. But when you don't set them, you silently declare the opposite. The painful thing is that the people who benefit the most from your lack of boundaries are usually the ones who complain the loudest when you finally set them. When you start saying, I can't do that today, they call you selfish. When you say, I need some space, they say you've changed. When you stop putting them first, they make you feel guilty. But understand this clearly. Anyone who gets offended by your boundaries was only comfortable with you having none. Healthy people respect limits. They understand that everyone has a life, responsibilities, emotions, and limits. Unhealthy people see boundaries as threats because they lose the control, convenience, and comfort they once enjoyed at your expense. And often, this fear of disappointing or losing people is the exact reason you avoid creating boundaries. You feel responsible for their reactions. You feel guilty for making them uncomfortable. But ask yourself, why is your discomfort acceptable while theirs is not? Why is your peace less important than their expectations? Setting boundaries is not about pushing people away. It's about pulling yourself back into your own life. It's about reclaiming your emotional territory. It's about choosing who deserves your energy, not blindly giving it to anyone who demands it. When you say yes to everything, you are actually saying no to your own growth, goals, and well-being. Every unnecessary commitment steals time from your own journey. Every forced favor drains emotional fuel you need for your own healing. And every time you stay silent instead of stating your limits, you teach the world that your needs are negotiable. But something beautiful happens the moment you begin practicing boundaries. You start feeling lighter. You start breathing easier. You start hearing your own thoughts again because they're no longer drowned by everyone else's demands. You begin to see who truly values you for who you are, not just for what you can offer. Some people will step back, some will walk away, and some will stay and adjust. And that's how you learn who belongs in your life. Remember, boundaries are not punishments. They are protection. They protect your mind from overload, your heart from manipulation, your time from being wasted, and your soul from being drained. They protect your inner peace, which is more precious than any approval you could gain from being overly available. You don't set boundaries because you don't care. You set boundaries because you finally care about yourself. And that shift transforms everything. Many people walk through life carrying weight that was never theirs to carry. They fix problems they didn't cause, apologize for things they didn't do, and rescue people who never learn because someone is always rescuing them. It comes from a good heart. You see someone struggling and your instinct is to step in and help. But slowly, without realizing it, you begin to take responsibility for other people's irresponsibility. And that is where the emotional burden begins. When you keep solving problems that aren't yours, You become the emotional firefighter for everyone else's chaos. They make a mess and you grab the broom. They create drama and you become the counselor. They make decisions without thinking and you handle the consequences. You become the shock absorber of their poor choices. And what's worse is that they start believing this is normal. Your help becomes expected. Your assistance becomes routine. They begin to think you should fix things because you always have. This is how a dangerous pattern forms. Their problem becomes your responsibility. Their stress becomes your anxiety. Their lack of planning becomes your emergency. And the more you keep rescuing, the more they stop trying. Why would they learn to stand if you always offer your shoulder? Why would they become independent when you make dependence so comfortable? Help is supposed to empower people, not weaken their ability to handle life on their own. But when you constantly intervene, you unintentionally take away their opportunity to grow, to learn, and to face the consequences that would shape them. It's not just about them, it's also about you. When you carry burdens that aren't yours, your mind begins to feel heavy. Your schedule gets filled with tasks that don't benefit your life. Your energy gets wasted on problems you never created. You wake up tired, not because your life is difficult, but because you're living everyone else's life while yours is being neglected. You sacrifice your peace trying to maintain someone else's comfort. You apologize for being tired. You feel guilty when you can't help. You feel responsible when things go wrong in their life, even when you had nothing to do with it, and slowly you forget what it feels like to take care of yourself without interruption. But here is the truth: very few people are brave enough to accept. You cannot heal people who refuse to change. You cannot save people who enjoy being rescued. You cannot fix people who benefit from staying broken. Some people don't need your solutions, they need accountability. Some don't need your time, they need consequences. Some don't need your emotional labor, they need to face the reality they keep running from. Letting someone face their own problem is not cruelty, it is maturity, it is wisdom, it is an act of love, both for them and for yourself. When you stop solving their problems, you give them the chance to step into their own strength. You give them the opportunity to learn responsibility, and you give yourself the right to breathe again. You weren't born to be a repair center for other people's mistakes. You weren't created to be a dumping ground for stress that doesn't belong to you. You are allowed to step back. You're allowed to say, "This is not mine." You are allowed to return the weight to the person it belongs to. Because the moment you stop fixing problems that aren't yours, two things happen. The wrong people get upset, and the right people start standing on their own feet, and in that moment, you reclaim your peace, your time, and your emotional freedom. The things you were losing every time you picked up a burden that was never meant for you. When you give someone your attention, you are giving them something far more valuable than money, gifts, or help. You are giving them pieces of your time. Why? Our presence, your mind, and your emotional space. Attention is not cheap. It is one of the rarest forms of love. But the problem begins when your attention is given freely, instantly, and continuously to people who have done nothing to earn it, respect it, or reciprocate it. Many relationships, friendships, romances, even family connections begin to fall apart not because you stopped caring, but because the other person stopped appreciating the attention you were giving. They started treating it as a guarantee rather than a gift. They felt entitled to your presence instead of grateful for it, and slowly you start to feel invisible even while giving everything you have. When you give attention without boundaries, people stop working for your effort. They stop valuing your messages because you always reply. They stop appreciating your time because you always show up. They stop acknowledging your effort because you always give without hesitation. Your availability becomes the air they breathe, necessary, constant, and taken for granted. The truth is simple. When something requires no effort to access, the human mind naturally devalues it. If someone can reach you anytime, they stop feeling the urgency to connect. If someone knows you'll respond instantly, they stop responding with the same energy. If someone knows you'll never leave, they stop treating you like someone worth keeping. Attention should be earned, not demanded, not assumed, earned. Think about the people you deeply respect. You value their presence because it's not repeatedly or casually available. You listen to them because their words carry weight. You show up differently because their time matters. Scarcity creates intention, and intention creates respect. When you give too much attention to someone who gives you very little in return, you create a dangerous imbalance. You beg in overthinking their silence. You start questioning yourself. You worry when they take too long to reply, even though you respond in seconds. You begin to feel like you're trying too hard, but you continue anyway because you fear losing them. But what you don't realize is far more painful. You already lost your value in their eyes the moment you made yourself too available to someone who barely tries. Your attention becomes meaningful the moment you stop giving it to people who treat it lightly. When you pull back not out of anger but out of self-respect, you create space for people to realize your worth. People suddenly notice your absence when they were too comfortable with your presence. People start thinking about you when you stop being instantly reachable. People begin valuing your time when they see you're not always at their disposal. And here's something powerful. The way people react when you give less attention tells you exactly what they were there for. If someone gets angry or distant, they were only there for the benefits of your attention. If someone adjusts and matches your energy, they value who you are, not what you offer. This shift isn't about playing games or pretending to be busy. It's about alignment, matching energy, protecting your emotional space, respecting your time, because attention is sacred and not everyone deserves access to you. When you start giving attention based on reciprocity, not desperation, your relationships transform. You begin attracting people who give you the same energy you give them. You build connections based on mutual respect, not convenience. You surround yourself with people who recognize your worth without needing constant reminders. Most importantly, you reconnect with yourself. You begin using that attention on your own growth, on your peace, on your dreams, on people who uplift you instead of drain you. Because at the end of the day, your attention is your power. And when you stop giving it to the wrong people, the right people finally have a chance to appear. Time is the one thing you spend every single day, but can never get back. You can lose money and earn it again. You can lose opportunities and create new ones. You can lose people and meet others. But the minutes, the hours, the days you give away, they are gone forever. And yet, most people treat their time like it's unlimited, like they have an infinite supply, like giving it away freely has no cost. But the truth is, your time is the most valuable currency you own. And when you give it away without thought, without boundaries, and without purpose, others will spend it for their benefit while you lose your own life, inch by inch. The people who constantly demand your time rarely understand what they're taking from you. They don't see the dreams you put on hold just to be available to them. They don't see the responsibilities you delay just to attend to their needs. They don't see the mental exhaustion you carry because your schedule has become a collection of everyone else's problems except your own. But you feel it. You feel it when your goals start fading because you never have time for them. You feel it when your peace gets disturbed because someone needs you right now. You feel it when your day disappears because you spent it solving issues that weren't even connected to your own progress. Every time you give your time to someone who doesn't value it, you are making a silent transaction. You are exchanging pieces of your future for someone else's convenience. And while they walk away satisfied, you're left with less energy, less focus, less clarity, and less life for yourself. This is why valuing your time is not selfish. It is necessary. Because if you don't value it, others won't either. And if you let people take it freely, they will take and take until there's nothing left for your own growth. Think about this deeply. Your time determines your life. Where your time goes, your life goes. If you give your time to distractions, your life becomes scattered. If you give it to people who drain you, your life becomes heavy. If you give it to people who don't respect you, your life becomes filled with frustration. But when you give your time to your goals, your healing, your learning, your growth, your peace, your life expands. The most dangerous thing you can do is allow people to treat your time as if it's cheap. Because the moment they see you giving it away easily, they will start expecting it. They will call you without considering your schedule. They will ask for favors without thinking about your workload. They will interrupt your day without asking if you're mentally or emotionally available. And you will find yourself living according to other people's urgency instead of your own purpose. You must understand that time is not just hours on a clock. It is your focus, your energy, your attention, your breath, your life force. When you allow someone to misuse your time, you allow them to take pieces of your life that you will never recover. Protecting your time means protecting your direction. It means saying, I choose where my life goes. I choose who gets access. I choose what is worth my hours. When you begin valuing your time, something incredible happens. You start becoming more intentional. You become more peaceful. You attract people who respect boundaries. You lose people who are only there to waste your energy. And you gain back control of your life. Not everyone deserves a place in your schedule. Not everyone deserves your hours. Not everyone deserves your attention. Your time should not be given away casually. It should be invested wisely. Because every minute spent on the wrong person or the wrong situation is a minute stolen from your future. You owe it to yourself to protect your time fiercely. Not because you are hard or selfish, but because you finally understand the truth. Your time is your life. And wasting it means losing yourself. When you make yourself emotionally available to everyone, you slowly begin to disappear within yourself. Being there for people is beautiful. It shows empathy, compassion, and depth. But when you become the person who listens to every problem, comforts every crisis, absorbs every emotion, and supports every breakdown, you start carrying emotional weight that your heart was never designed to hold. At first, it feels noble. You're helping, supporting, guiding, lifting. People tell you, you're such a good listener, you're always there, I don't know what I'd do without you. Their gratitude feels rewarding. But over time, something subtle begins to change. Their emotional world becomes your responsibility. Their stress becomes your stress. Their sadness becomes your sadness. Their chaos becomes a storm inside your mind. And the worst part, no one even realizes what you are sacrificing internally to remain emotionally available. When you're emotionally available to everyone, you slowly become unavailable to yourself. You stop addressing your own pain because you're too busy patching everyone else's wounds. You silence your own emotions because someone else's crisis seems more urgent. You push your own feelings aside because you don't want to burden others, even though everyone burdens you without hesitation. Eventually, you begin to feel drained, heavy, mentally exhausted, but you keep going because you feel obligated to be the strong one. But strength isn't about absorbing everyone's emotions. Strength is knowing when to step back and protect your own. Emotional balance means being supportive without losing yourself. Because when you give unlimited emotional access to people, they begin to expect it. If you answer every late night message, they assume you always will. If you stay calm through every rant, they expect you to keep absorbing it. If you listen for hours, they forget that you might also need someone to listen to you. Your emotional availability turns into their emotional entitlement. And here's the tragedy. People rarely give back the same emotional energy you give them, not because they're bad, but because they've learned to rely on your strength more than their own. They assume you can handle everything, even when you're breaking inside. They don't pause to ask how you are doing. They don't notice your tired eyes, your heavy mind, your quiet sadness. They don't ask because you taught them you're always okay. Emotional burnout is real. It's when you care so much about others that you forget to care about yourself. It's when you're surrounded by people but feel profoundly alone. It's when you're constantly giving emotional warmth to others and wondering why you feel so cold inside. You start withdrawing silently because you feel like you've been giving more than your heart can hold. But here's the truth you must understand deeply. Your emotional energy is limited. You cannot pour endlessly and expect to stay full. You cannot heal others while ignoring your own wounds. You cannot be emotionally available to everyone without eventually becoming emotionally exhausted for yourself. Healthy emotional availability means knowing when to be present and when to step back. It means you can care, but not at the cost of your mental health. It means you can listen, but not be everyone's therapist. It means you can love, but not drown in someone else's emotional waves. When you begin protecting your emotional space, your life transforms. You start feeling lighter because you're no longer carrying everyone's emotional baggage. You begin noticing your own needs, desires, boundaries, and inner voice. You give energy to relationships that uplift you, not drain you. And slowly, you rebuild the emotional strength that constant giving had taken away. Not everyone should have access to your deepest emotional self. Your heart is not a public shelter. Your mind is not an emotional dumping ground. Your soul is not a battery pack for people who refuse to charge themselves. You deserve emotional peace. You deserve relationships where the support flows both ways. You deserve to feel heard, cared for, and emotionally safe. When you stop being emotionally available to everyone, you finally become emotionally available to yourself.